All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday, October 6, 2020 Electronic City Council Workshop. It is also our regular October workshop. So I'll now actually ask the clerk to take roll call to make sure we have a quorum.
Okay. Councilmember Cleveland, I don't see. Councilmember Peterson.
Present.
Councilmember Nijhagen, I do not see present either. Councilmember Selby.
Present.
Councilmember Sherman.
Present.
Councilmember Trope. Present. And Councilmember Bobbitt let me know ahead of time that he will not be here. So, but we do have 4 council members, so we do have a quorum. Also with us this evening is City Administrator Mike Rizzatello, Finance Director Brian Carlton, and Deputy Finance Director Desiree Cinnamon, HR Manager Sean Doring, Deputy Clerk Holm, and myself.
Okay, great, thank you. So we do have multiple workshop items today, so I will not delay in getting these moving on. So the first one is 2.01, which is Mr. Rizzatello will present regarding permit for Sherwood Trust class of 2020.
Yeah. So with this item, it's actually making that triangular piece of property that was formerly owned by Cascade Natural Gas that's now owned by us look appealing. It's right to the east of Newgate. Right now, it's just a gravel lot. Cascade Natural Gas gave about $1,500 to work on it, and then we allocated about $10,000. There is a group through the Sherwood leadership class where they're taking this on as their class project. TJ Espinoza and Leif Bissell from our park board are actually in that leadership group. They fundraised an additional $10,000, and they basically want permission to turn this into a nice little parklet with water fountain and a pet water fountain. It's a dual facility, a bench, some better fencing around the perimeter, and then some bushes and trees that fit our arbor standards that were adopted a couple years back. And we would extend water to the site. There is a water line out in the street. We would just need to have a connection so that way this stuff can get irrigated. But they basically want to start work on this soon. So I have this as an introduction item for tonight. And this will go for approval next meeting. Just putting this in front of you for any comments or thoughts.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rizzatello. So we'll start to see if there's any questions or comments, and I'm going to start with Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, Mike, real quickly, is the what is the monument going to say?
The monument signage is basically going to call it like the 12th Street parklet. We could call it something else if you would all desire with it. But that was just the concept because that was the name we gave for it way back when.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Okay, Ms. Selby, any questions or comments?
I'm interested in the fountain. So I have 2 thoughts about the fountain. One, we need to make sure that it doesn't turn into a major maintenance problem.
Okay.
And 2, it seems like a perfect place to have a fountain that includes dog water.
Yeah.
Fountain.
Mm.
Yeah, the one that they're speccing out actually does have that.
Good, because that's so important, and when they're good to put in with another water feature.
Mm.
Absolutely. Plus it encourages walking.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Sherman, any questions or comments? Okay, I think she had to just step away. Mr. Trope, any questions or comments?
Mike, I missed exactly where this is. I see it's on 12th Street, but where specifically?
Yeah, so it's near Newgate Drive, so it's just to the west of that. So it's on the south side of the street, and it's basically on top of the hill, right over the Autumn Meadows subdivision. It's just a very small triangular shaped property.
Thanks, Mike. That's all my questions.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to Ms. Sherman. I had to readjust my screen. So Ms. Sherman, any questions or comments?
Oh, no, I just couldn't get to my unmute.
That's what I figured. I couldn't see you, so sorry about that. Okay. So if there's no other questions, we'll move on to the next topic. Any questions or comments on this subject? None? Okay, let's move on to 2.02 regarding the on-call engineering and surveying service.
Okay, thank you. So this is an out-of-the-box concept that I started researching after what happened with Robert, because we had the recruitment for the engineering manager going on for a bit, and there really were no bites to it. So which would lead us to either have an increase the salary or doing things of that sort, plus maybe add staff. But the thing is, our work so volatile within development services, it makes it hard to predict. So I reached out to some of our comparable cities, which include Umatilla, Oregon, Liberty Lake, Washington, and then Deer Park. And what they do is for their engineering function for development review, as well as for a lot of their infrastructure projects, they outsource it to a city engineer of record. This concept I had a bit of success with when I was in Colfax. So just to see what the level of interest was, and then to get proposals and just see where it landed, we put out a RSQ. And there were 5 firms that responded. Staff graded said firms. The proposal that came out on top was JUB. They do a lot of our work in the wastewater function, and their firm is very versatile, where they have staff expertise for a variety of vocations, with water, wastewater, park development, which would be good for what we're doing, like out by Lions Park. Just a variety of things. So it ended up where they were ranked as the top submittal by a long shot. I mean, the point spread between them and the others was just around like less than 30 points, but still a good spread. So this is the concept for now that I would like to invoke for the engineering coverage, because what I would like to do longer term is that when Paul retires, we recruit for a person to hold that position that also has an engineering license. So they would be public works director / city engineer. And then we still keep this firm on staff as the on-call engineer. So the contract and RFP as advertised was like for a 4-year term if we went this route. So this is just a concept I really think with our workload and everything else would be great to use.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to go through the council members, and if after I pass your turn, if you have another questions, please feel free to raise the little hand so I can get back to you. Okay, we're going to start with Mr. Peterson.
Mike, I missed the first comment. I think my audio was off a bit. You said there were no bites. What was that in reference to?
So we advertised on NeoGov the engineering manager position, and no one put in for it, and it was advertised. And the issue we have with that vocation is that there's several employers like in the near area that employ engineers at a high rate of pay, like Army Corps of Engineers, all 3 Tri-Cities, Hanford, Pacific National Lab. So it just makes it really, really hard to attract someone. So that's why in looking at this, it looks like this may be the way to go.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Great. Okay, Ms. Selby.
I do think this is a really good way to go, because it's not really reasonable to expect one person to have all the types of expertise that a town needs, but a town our size really can't afford an engineering department. So I appreciate this approach. 30 years ago, I worked for a consulting firm and we were city engineer for 2 or 3 cities.
Exactly. That's exactly right on the button of why. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sherman. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, Mike, did you say the cost difference?
I did not say the cost difference because this contract doesn't really have like a lump sum cost. It would just be like per project based, and it would depend just on what we assign them to. In looking at what our comps paid for a variety of projects they had going on, it looked like it was around a wash.
Okay.
Looked
Thank you.
equal.
And then the grading page, that spreadsheet, that's
Yeah.
supposed to be out of 600, correct?
Yeah.
Or, oh, each grade was out of 100. The total is out of 600. Got it. Okay.
Yep.
All right, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Trope, any questions or comments?
None. I thought it was also a great idea if we can find a candidate that fits the bill.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Rizzatello, let's move on to 2.03, which is a COVID. Oh,
Can I just say one more thing? I think that it does well to show Robert that it will take multiple people to replace him.
absolutely. Irreplaceable. I mean, seriously, we have to go hire a whole engineering firm.
Yep.
Oh, all right. COVID grant distributions, Mr. Rizzatello.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So with this, we received a letter from Department of Commerce. They had leftover CARES COVID dollars that they were distributing to cities and counties and pretty much everyone else. So with that, it gave us an additional $144,975. And then just in case something happened, we were still holding on to about an additional $20,000 from the earlier grant, which leaves a grand total of roughly $164,975. So I sent out a call to department heads just on projects that they thought were tangentially connected with COVID that would fit the bill with the grant that would be funded. And then I tried to rank them basically on need and just assisting the city. So what you see before you is the spreadsheet, and I'll just explain quickly about the ones I'm recommending we fund, and this will go for your ultimate approval next business meeting. So as you can see here, there were requests totaling almost $725,000. So significant requests. The ones that I'm recommending go forward are as follows. SMARSH, that's this program that allows like for capturing metadata for city cell phones. That's definitely needed for public records requests. We're starting to get requests like that. So we definitely need that. Also, our tables and chairs for restaurants are such a big hit that we're getting more requests for that. So we were totaling up what we thought we would need there based on the requests we're getting from our business community. We felt around 20,000 would do it. Another thing, in talking with Public Works, which was surprising to me, those digital reader boards that you see like for construction projects or putting out messages, we don't actually have a mobile one, which was surprising to me because most cities do. Wall Wallet, in fact, they just did an order for it with their CARES COVID money. So I'm recommending we get one of those. The quote I had for 2 of them, but with other projects that we're looking at funding, I have in here for 1. Other thing to enable social distancing. Wall Public Schools is willing to donate to us basically mobile units that we can move over to the shooting range, and that's used for regional trainings for shooting and law enforcement. But we need classroom space out there for social distance, and they're willing to essentially give us those portables. But there is quite a bit of work to make them usable, like running electricity out there, water, sewer, a variety of things. So to fit that out, that would be 50,000. Also, pole building for public works. Felt that was important because if you've ever been out to a public works yard, some of the buildings they actually work in are converted chicken coop buildings. And over a year since we've added additional staff, it makes social distancing a challenge. And then also it's good to provide cover for our equipment. I mean, we have our new street sweeper out there. Paul did some investigations and it looked like we could get a start of a pole building going for about 50,000. Automated chest compression machine. We originally were going after a FEMA grant for this. However, every time you turn in a clarification of FEMA, they ask more questions, and David and I are still going back and forth with them. So I'm proposing we just go ahead, get the chest compression machine. If FEMA ever comes through, we'll have that money, we'll pay ourselves back, and then work something else on this list. Other things. Computers, 3 for Public Works yard, because traditionally Public Works has done their trainings in person. It's all moved online. They only have 1 computer out there, which with the crew they have is a challenge. So we need more computers out there. Diversion program. I included a proposal from Ree, and this is to essentially create like a community diversion program for low-level offenders, such as like issues with changing of title, minor theft for a first-time offense, things like that. A lot of communities work on a diversion program. We're looking at doing one here. I'm proposing we seed fund it with just shy of 6,000 from this COVID grant. And then the remainder that can fund it is savings we have on staff time from staff time we've charged on the earlier COVID grant. And then the last thing I have to be funded in here is a camcorder for police department, because we do informational videos related to COVID. However, Troy's been having to film that with all of his personal equipment all of these years. It's not city equipment. So he actually has to bring in stuff he owns, and then he has a program at his home computer and he has to go back to his house and do all of it there. So we're looking at getting equipment so we can actually do it here and not have to depend on his personal software and camcorder equipment. And then that basically gets us at that 164,000. I apologize for bringing all this to you this quickly, but that money expires the end of November. So we need to spend it. So this will go before your approval next council meeting. If anyone has any comments, please let me know.
Okay, so we will open it quick. We'll open it right now for any questions or comments while we have Mike here. Mr. Peterson, any questions or comments?
Yeah, real quickly, Mike, I really support the tables and chairs for the businesses. One of the things I'm looking at that includes perhaps umbrellas. I mean, it's kind of a generic tables and chairs. I get that. One of the things I'm wondering, are we considering outdoor heaters or anything like that as the weather changes? Is that a part of that scope?
Yeah, I just put tables and chairs in there, the generic term, but like for half we've talked with them about helping them purchase outdoor heater.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, Ms. Selby.
I think this sounds like a great use of the money.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Sherman.
I agree. I'm glad that we're able to get some things that have been needed for a while.
Yeah, I was quite surprised to find out that we're using the chief of police's personal.
Well, I mean, prior to Troy, we weren't doing any of this stuff, so.
So I think he'll appreciate that, as generous as he
Absolutely.
always is. Okay, and Mr. Trope.
Excuse me, I agree with the others. Good ideas, sound like viable things to spend some money on, especially like this.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, next item is 2.04 regarding the fiscal year 2021 state and federal legislative agenda. And Mr. Rizzatello is going to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. So it's already that time of the year, believe it or not. So we have to do our legislative agenda. Some things have changed in it, some things have not. The key projects we're advocating for this go around naturally is the wastewater treatment plant. That's the big one for the legislative agenda. Also Lions Park. I have good news for Lions Park. We actually ranked high on 2 of the grants. So it looks like we'll probably be getting $1 million toward the Lions Park renovation from our CO. So we got the grant. We scored number 14, which typically they fund to separate the pond from the creek. So to do the pond work. And then the project for the splash pad, the inclusive playground, that actually ranked as number 7 statewide. So I believe we're sitting good there. And then in the legislative agenda, stormwater decant facility, and then everything we're dealing with the Southwest College place. Oh, Lisa, could you put the legislative agenda on the screen? You have the capital facility plan. That's like next, but not now. 2.04. Oh, 2.04. Yeah. And then if you could click on draft state agenda, which is document number 3. Okay. Yeah, so Southwest College Place is listed on there. There's 3 components to it. Southwest wastewater trunk line, which for the most part we have funded. Then Majanier Road, which we actually have an MPO grant to pay for the engineering and right-of-way of that road, but not the construction part. And then also a regional park, which development out there will trip the need for that, which the majority of that will be developer born, but there still is some city exposure, which would be good to get some state help on. As far as key issues, protecting and strengthening the grant agencies that we get money from them through, because especially with revenues taken, TIB, Public Works Trust Fund, the Recreation Board, CURB, I mean, they're all on the table, so we need to do it. We can't protect them. Also trying to get them to ever pass economic development incentives. I've said that as long as I've been here, so I don't need to reiterate that. Multifamily tax exemption, we're trying to get them to pass that because again, right now for counties that were not mandated the plan where they opted in, if you aren't the county seat or you aren't in one of the mandated counties, you can't get it. So Walla Walla gets it and Colfax gets it, yet we don't. That's not fair. Also finishing up Highway 12, general government trying to remove the property tax limit as well, and then make sure we get the funding we need related to anything that comes up with COVID. And defending MRSC, we get a lot of our research from there. That's under threat once again. And then fighting against unfunded mandates. Public safety, we're trying to support the need to retain local control over law enforcement policy decisions. I was on the AWC Legislative Committee this go around. There's about 200 bills related to law enforcement reform that are floating around already. So that's going to be a major thing this upcoming legislative session. Also making sure we get funding for mental health services, the Law Enforcement Academy, and then supporting the AWC agenda. But that's what I have on the legislative agenda. Some things changed, some didn't, but it's what I have in there now. So any questions?
Right, just a few items on there, so let's okay, let's start with Mr. Peterson. Any questions?
None here. Thank you, Mike.
Ms. Selby?
Nope, I agree with all of that.
Okay, Ms. Sherman?
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, and Mr. Trope?
I'm really excited about the progress we made on the park. Good job.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that is excellent. Okay, so no other questions. We're going to move on to, let's take a look here. draft of the fiscal year 2021 to 2026 capital facilities plan. That's 2.05. Mr. Rizzatello.
Okay. I'm just gonna go over things that are happening next year because a lot of this you've read the books in past years. I'm sure you don't want to hear me pontificate again. So I'll just go over the key stuff that's changed. So in administrative community development, and I'm just looking at the spreadsheet now. For as far as what's budgeted for next year, for administration community development, we have flooring over on the community development side. So that's in at like 6,000. Fire department, we have our contribution for the training tower. And then also dealing with some HVAC issues that exist over there, as well as the exterior staircase that's been having issues for a while at 30,000. So that's what's in the fire department allocation. Police department, they have a chiller issue. We replaced one of their chillers that basically controls the north side of the building. The south side one needed it this year, but we didn't have the funds to deal with it. And luckily we were able to make it last this year, but I doubt we'll be able to do the same trick next year. So we'll deal with that. Park wise, under the parks item, Lions Park renovation, we have that in at about $2 million. Right now, between what we have in REIT 2 and then likely those 2 RCO grants, we're basically sitting at around 1.5 million at the moment. So there's a gap of about 500,000. Primarily that's to deal with the softball field because we didn't score high on that grant. So hopefully we'll be able to get Sherwood Trust. They seemed interested to help with the gap financing. The 12th Street Parklet, I had that in there because I wasn't sure they would be able to get it done this year, but it's sounding like the group is trying to get this all wrapped up by November, so not sure we'll need it. Going in the stormwater fund, a lot of that is just your stereotypical maintenance activities. So outfall replacement program, we have significant expense next year because there's about 5 outfalls that all dump into that Lions Park Pond from Garrison Creek Heights area. So while we have bulldozers and stuff in Lions Park, we want to get all this done at the same time so we aren't destroying stuff we just constructed. So I have 100,000 in there for the outfall replacement for Lions Park. And then also Destito and Earl Lane. There's actually a major flooding issue on Destito cul-de-sac off of Spagnuolo Lane off of B Street. And that's due to a crushed stormwater pipe. So that needs to be fixed. So that's in there as well. So that's for stormwater. For streets, a lot of it is work that was delayed, frankly, because of COVID. So for Bikes Project, putting the ped lights on 4th Street, that's in there to spend down that grant. Meadowbrook, which we were going to do, but was delayed because TIB ran out of money. That's going to happen next year. Whitman large stop signs, putting that in next year. That would be the developer contribution from villages. Safe Walk College Place, that's the CDBG sidewalks. We finally have final engineering all wrapped up on it. So we're actually going to go out to bid on this probably within the next couple of weeks. So that way when the weather warms up, whoever gets it as the contractor can just go build it. And that sidewalks on Bade, Davis, and then 12th. Then crosswalk improvements. I put in several WASDOT grants. I'm hopeful we'll get it, but that's to put like a rapid flashing beacon and just make the crosswalk in front of the post office more prominent because we've had several close calls over there. We need to deal with it. I get a lot of complaints about it. So that's the streets. And then going into wastewater, which wastewater is fairly standard stuff I've talked about before. So wastewater treatment plant improvements, finishing up the design work on that, which is about $500,000. A lot of that's money, grant loan money we got from ecology. But then the next 2 years after that, we have significant expense to fix that. Southwest College Place, a wastewater trunk line. We have the money all put together there for that. We just need to build it next year. Neighborhood sewer line, and every year we set aside money now to fix up the integrity via putting the balloon in the sewer lines. We're doing the one for this year in the next couple of weeks because we had some manhole issues, so we need to fix that. But as you can see, next year we have lining continuing around 12th and Broadway, so that's wastewater. Then the water side, we have a couple things there too. So replacing well number 2, which is now known as well number 6. We just need to get the engineering plans done for well house and get the well house operational. That's next year. The Peppers Bridge well is fully done now, luckily, so we're good there. Water main improvements for Sky and 12th, do that next year. The solar array out at Whitman and Maple, I'm trying to get some gap financing front. We have Pacific Power money. I'm trying to get some State Department of Commerce money to match it so we could actually do it, because there was a little bit of a shortfall in what Pacific Power granted us from what we requested. So that'll happen if we're able to pair the financing and get it funded. All together for next year, I mean, it's a significant grand total as it has been, about 16 million across all the departments. If you look out the projections out for next 6 years, the price tag's just shy, frankly, of 80 million. A lot of the larger ticket items years down the line will be dependent, frankly, on growth, and the developers will pay that cost. I would say the major thing hanging over our heads, which we're going to have to lobby aggressively for, which my stance has been, frankly, either give us money or give us more time and back off, is the wastewater treatment plant. I mean, that consumes a lot of money. But with that, that is the CFP.
Whew. All right. Any questions, Mr. Peterson?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That's very comprehensive. And this document, of course, we will be reviewing this as it goes along. This resides where? Just probably the easiest is to go back to this site and look for it, or
either look for it, or after tonight, what I do is if you go on cpwa.us, there's actually like there's actually a little logo we have for like a budget portal. Every year I do like a budget website that people can click on stuff and see it. So go on there and you'll see the most updated versions. I just need to put it up there tonight.
Oh no, that's fine.
So
thank you, Mike.
In the meantime, if you're logged into your Board Docs account, this is available in the administrative content.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Lisa.
Ms. Selby?
I just really admire all the stuff that you do to put all this together, Mike. I have a student who's working on a senior project to look at 9th Street. And I was bragging on you today. Him.
And what's amazing is he has it all in his head.
Yes.
He doesn't even need to review the document.
I'm like, he finds all these little sources of money, and we adopted a tree plan and now we get tree money, and so yeah, it's awesome.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Sherman, any questions or comments?
I don't. I just had to catch my breath when he was done talking.
Right. Okay. And Mr. Trope?
Mike, I assume that's sewage treat or lining we're doing down on Larch right now, down by Hop Thief, right?
So the area that we're lining this year is actually out at like the Scenic View, Mountain View Hill, in the alleys. Those are in really bad condition.
No, I was going to say, if people want to see what it looks like,
Oh, yeah.
right now you can see all of the
Yeah.
liners laid out on the street,
Yeah.
getting ready to go down into the sewer, and they've closed that scenic between Newgate and I guess Larch now, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's kind of cool to look at.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you're talking about the stuff on Larch, that's actually piped for Cascade natural gas because
Oh,
they're putting a giant new gas pipeline underneath Larch right now.
okay. So that's not the liners.
No.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yep.
All right. If there's no other questions or comments, we'll move on to the next item of 2.06, which is fiscal year 2020 to 2025 equipment replacement plan. Mr. Rizzatello.
Okay, thank you. Similar concept to capital facility plan, except with equipment. We do this every year, so I'll just go over the key stuff that is planned for next year, and the other stuff you'll see is projected for next like 6 years out. So for administration and community development, we have money in there to essentially get a generator hooked up at City Hall. Right now, the generator we have is severely outdated and basically powers one outlet in the whole building. So that needs to change. So that's what we have for administrative and community development. For fire department, a lot of that is standard stuff, turnouts, SCBA. SCBA will likely get a grant for. David and I are working on that. And then with the fire marshal and fire captain vehicle, Jeff and Paul have done research and they found out we could opt into a similar lease program like we do the police cars, and it's actually advantageous for us. So that's what they're going to be recommending for those two vehicles in the fire department. And those are just standard vehicles for, so that's what we're recommending there. Police department, continue with the leasing program. The other thing, which you'll see part of this pop back up in the IT plan as well, is taser replacement. And we're actually going to be able to get a pretty good price on tasers because it turns out the same producer of this also is the one that makes like body cameras. So they're willing to give price breaks if you do both. And you'll see it in the IT plan, but just based on things and in talking with our officers, we're really going to make a concerted push to do body cameras next year. So that's in the police department. Streets, a couple of things, basically replacing a stellar truck, a utility truck, moving around some equipment where Ron is going to get like the old fire chief vehicle, and then Ron's old vehicle will end up going to Jeff over the equipment replacements. That way you can more easily store his vehicle equipment when he's traveling between buildings. The big thing we need next year, which is a stretch, but we don't really have a choice, is our grader. We use that for snow removal, and our grader is from 1976.
Oh my.
So yeah, so Paul tried to keep it working last year, and I would say it's to a point where that's pretty much like backfired. So we need to finally get a new grader. So we need to do that. Wastewater treatment plant, continue with that all-inclusive contract. It's working great. We pay them where they're responsible for all equipment replacement out there, running the whole treatment plant. The last of the tree stumps has been removed, so they're in charge of all the farming. So we're effectively out of day-to-day management of treatment plant, which is the way it needs to be. And then water, replacing a pickup truck. So with that, it ends up being where the equipment replacement grand total is about 877,000 estimated. So that's what you see on the 6-year plan. And I just went over what's proposed for next year.
All right, thank you. Mr. Peterson, we'll start with you for questions or comments. Oh, actually, I just looked and he's not there. Okay, oh, there he comes. Mr. Peterson, any questions or comments?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right, sorry about that. And
No,
Ms.
yeah.
Ms. Selby, any questions or comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Ms. Sherman.
None from me.
Okay, and Mr. Trout?
None, thank you.
All righty, moving right along then. Next item is 2.07 fiscal year 2021 to 2026 information technology plan.
Thank you. With this, we're making a lot of good headway on getting our IT up to date, especially with the COVID grant we got earlier in the year, because they were really encouraging cities to buy software and things to allow for like e-government services, allowing for government services to be run online. So compared to past years, instead of acquiring lots of software, you'll actually see a lot of maintenance costs. So that's a good thing that we're making that much headway. Also, I reorganized it from past years. Historically, it was divvied up as hardware, software, staff, and this time it's broken up mainly by departmental functions, so it's a little easier to understand. Next year, I have it where we're going to try to deal with fixing up the AV video system in council chambers, because a lot of the interim solutions we've been working on, frankly, have not been working, so it needs to be replaced. And then also, as we're doing that, the former visitation room in the former jail cells behind council chambers, we would like to renovate that into the mixing equipment, both for the audio for council chambers, as well as the server that all the city stuff resides in. So really getting the HVAC improved and all of that, so our server equipment's living good. Computer equipment, really after next year, we'll start to be on a more predictable schedule for our 7-year computer replacement program. So we've been playing catch up all these years. After next year, we'll roughly be caught up, which is good finally. Then as you scroll, you'll just see a lot of software maintenance, because we were able to buy iWork, which was for community development. Hopefully we'll launch that near year's end. And then for asset management, which the new engineering tech will have, fire department, minor computer expense, some portable radio replacement, which is a grant that covers that, and firehouse software maintenance, police department. The big thing there is we're going to try and make a run for body cameras, redaction software, and the money I have in this part is the body camera redaction software part of it. The taser part of it can't really be considered IT, so that's why that was an equipment replacement. But we're going to make a run at getting the body cams next year. Our frontline staff is supportive of it. It's just been an issue of money in past years. Security cameras, every year we try to get a unit. This comes out of our forfeited proceeds account, which is some money we get from court costs and things. Our security cameras have paid off in dividends as far as catching crime in progress, or even when crime is reported, let's say, to the department, or even if we run across comments on Facebook and then investigate it, we've been able to pull several interesting things from our cameras. So we propose getting another camera unit at Lamperty and Meadowbrook. That would help with Meadowbrook issues we've been having, as well as some issues we've been having with some incidences on that sidewalk that goes from Lamperty up the wall to where Central dead ends. And then server replacement. The 911 server that the county and city of Walla Walla has is toast. They were supposed to replace it this year, didn't because of COVID. They are next year, so we have to pay for our portion. Public Works, minor computer replacement, iWork, which will be maintenance costs. The cost to buy iWork was funded by state COVID grant. And then our credits for our GIS software, which is fairly standard as well. So next year, IT across all departments is about $333,000. It's a significant jump from that year, but it's going to go down significantly the following year, mainly because of the added increases from the server for 911 and then body cameras. So that's what I have.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with Mr. Peterson for questions or comments.
Mike, the two surveillance cameras that we have for the north and south into College Avenue, is it we're adequate on that right now, and that's been working okay?
Yeah, those have been working great. Those were ones that were paid for by the Wild Horse grant. Yeah.
No need to expand those at this time, or?
Right now, no. The one that we may need to expand, which you can get like units where as long as they have line of sight from like the brain unit, you can get them like for $400 a pop. For the smaller units, is we may need to get another camera or two out at Lions Park, especially if we renovate it. Because we've been having some incidences out there lately.
Thanks, Mike.
Ms. Selby?
I can definitely see the issue with Lions Park as we renovate it. We're probably definitely going to need cameras out there, but I'm of two minds because I really don't like we're watching everyone all the time, but we need to watch some people sometimes. So so far, I think we're using it wisely.
Absolutely. Okay, Ms. Sherman.
No comments, thanks.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Trope?
No comment, thank you.
All right, well, we're just speeding along this list. Okay, the final one is 2.08, the fiscal year 2021 budget. Ooh, the big one.
Okay, I'll try and slow it down a little, but still get through it quickly. I'll get to share my screen here and bring up the presentation. Oh, I just need to get the presentation showing.
From beginning, yeah. Yep.
Which one are you seeing, the full one or the one with the next slide? Is everybody seeing that?
I think,
Next slide.
We're seeing the one with the next slide.
yes.
That's fine.
We're seeing presenter view.
There you go.
Yeah, now we're seeing full slide.
Okay, here we go for another year of the budget cycle. So I'll just go to the next slide. This is some key items in the next couple months in the budget process. So currently where we're at is we have received all the department heads' requests for expenditures. We've gone through the revenues and detailed the revenues, which I'll go through in detail in another slide. We've also incorporated all the capital requests that you've just gone through and the associated funding requirements for all those. We still have, and as you all know, or maybe don't remember, is that we're utilizing Questica this year, and all the department heads used Questica to input their budget information. I have not included detail of Questica in this presentation. We still have some fine tuning to do with the reporting and also with some of the descriptions in the line items. But the numbers that I'll show you include all the information out of Questica. So I haven't heard a lot of feedback from everybody, all the department heads, but I believe it went pretty easy. Some of the key items in the schedule will be coming up with the The next big item will be approving the property tax levy, which will be at the end of October. And then our various budget hearing and meetings throughout, culminating in the approval, adoption of the budget at the December 8th council meeting. So based on all the preliminary information that we have inputted, this is the current status of the total budget for the city. A starting fund balance of just over $16 million. We're anticipating revenues of 36.2 million, expenditures of 37 million, resulting in a ending fund balance of just under 15.1 million. You'll notice there is a drawdown of close to $1 million, and I'll give you some detail on that in the next slide. So here's all the funds. You'll be familiar with this report. I used it last year. Basically starting each fund, beginning fund balance, anticipated revenues, expenditures, if there's a deficit, and then the ending fund balance. The reason for the $1 million drawdown in the total fund balance is basically related to 2 or 3 significant items. You can see down in Fund 306 here, there's a drawdown of 458. That's related to Lions Park, and that is the amount we've accumulated over the last 3 or 4 years in that REIT 2 account to help pay for the Lions Park renovation. That's $458,000 anticipated drawdown in the REIT 2 fund, but that was anticipated. The other one is down in account 410, which is the water reserve. That $534,000 drawdown in the account is related to our portion of the wells projects that are required that aren't funded by grants or loans. As well as the next one in the 480,000 under 411, that's the wastewater. That's the anticipated portion that the city was required to put in under the funding agreement with USDA for the Southwest Sewer Project. There's a few others that are, ins and outs, but those are the majority of the reasons for the $1 million drawdown in the fund balance. Do you want to ask any questions before I move on?
Any questions from anybody? Use your little hand.
Oh,
There's a lot of numbers there, I know. And in the future presentations, we'll go into a little more detail on each of the line items.
Okay, I think Mr. Peterson had a question.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, doesn't look like it.
Here's the next slide is giving a bit of detail on the 2020 revenue, and these are some of the key drivers. Property taxes, we're assuming we're going to go with the 1% increase, which has been included in the current preliminary budget. You can see retail sales tax, even though we're in the midst of COVID and the closure, you can see that, based on our annualized number for 2020, we're expecting, close to $300,000 increase in our sales tax revenue. That's thankful to Walmart and Home Depot. And then we're anticipating a 10% increase next year at 1.8. And we're driving those numbers from a report that we use, and I'm just blanking on the name, but it comes from the state, and we're driving our increased numbers from those. Investment interest, we're going to see a slight increase next year. Hard to say whether that'll materialize, but you can definitely see a reduction from 2019 for the reduction in interest rates. We're just not receiving as much money on our investments. Motor fuel tax, that's definitely a COVID related item in 2020. Everybody's staying at home and not consuming as much gasoline. We're expecting that to increase back to normal levels next year. The next, the water sales, according to the rate models, we're anticipating, well, we're going to recommend a 5% increase in the water rate. That'll come through later in the year when we approve the increases. We're hopefully, now you get down to the shut-off fees. You can see that this year, because of COVID, we weren't able to shut off people's utilities, and our revenue definitely reduced. It's not a huge dollar, but we're anticipating an increase next year as we get out of COVID. One of the biggest increases that you'll see is the wastewater utility permits. Of course, due to COVID, everything was put on hold, construction was stopped. And based on John's estimates of the projects happening next year, we're going to see a considerable increase in our revenues for the utility permits. And I did have some detail on some of those projects. So a number of projects on those fees and for the 871,000 include, you know, the Village of Fort Wall of Apartments is the biggest one at 525,000, and that's a lion's share of what's in that increase. So hopefully that project goes. We're anticipating it is. Wastewater charges, what's included in the rate utility model is a 3% increase, and that's incorporated there. Same with stormwater. Utility rate model shows a 3% increase in there. And then building permits is the next big increase next year at 26%. So we're anticipating a 13% increase in our those identified revenues. In total, we have about $52 million in revenue. That includes opening fund balances, plus there's revenue that's included in our loan receipts and also interfund transfers that aren't included in this number. We'll give more detail in the next presentation that includes all those items. Here is the proposed utility rates that I just spoke about, showing what we've included in the utility rate models. And as you recall, I presented those, I think, about a month ago. We went through the utility rate models, and this is reflective in what's in those models. So a slight increase moving forward. You know, we have to pay for Southwest Sewer and all the projects that we're working on. So what's incorporated in the plan as far as staffing? You can see that for this year, we're at 48.5 full-time equivalents. There is some projects that were put on hold because of COVID that we're anticipating placing those positions by the end of the year. As for next year, we're not anticipating any increase in FTEs. And you can see there, if you have questions on that, we should be fully staffed.
Well, Lauren here. So you've got, and we do not need to go into the details, but you have some retirements obviously happening, or a net
Yeah,
here.
well, that's anticipated because Robert's no longer there, and next year we had him in the budget as well as Paul, but then we plan on replacing those, and our anticipation is that Paul will be there most of the year.
Yeah. And then one of the things that we're going to do too is the hire that we're going to make to replace Paul. I mean, that Paul's been here for over 46 years, so there needs to be a significant shadow period with whoever replaces him. So the concept is that naturally we're advertising it as the public works director, and essentially we'll have a shadow period where they'll both be working, and then Paul will retire, and then that person will ascend to the public works director / city engineer role. Because with what's happened this year, I think it's become definitely apparent that with the volatile nature of both the development and project work here, trying to pin all the engineering projects on one person isn't really a tenable position for either the person or the city. So that's why we're going to have the firm take on the majority of it. And then the management of that will be the combo position.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to put in here the stuff that Mike went through, and just to summarize where we're at on the capital facility budget that is included currently in the numbers in each of the funds. And you can see kind of in summary where we're at on the total spending just for 2021. Of course, the largest one is the Southwest Sewer Project. Same as a summary here for the equipment repair and replacement for 2021, and again, this is incorporated into the budget currently. So then the next steps for us in finance are we have to update and reconcile all the inter-fund transfers. We have to update any changes in capital and make sure we're tied out completely to Mike's document, because that is a moving document, and it's changing. It can change quite rapidly, and we need to make sure we incorporate those into the budget, as well as the different funding options for each of those capital requirements. Mike and I will conduct department meetings with each department head and go through their costs on a line item basis. And as well as we need to update Questica budget. And Dave, Sheree, and I are working on getting the reporting to a level that I'm satisfied in that we can issue to council. So that's where we're at. Is there any questions?
Great, thank you, Mr. Carlton. All right, so we'll go ahead, Mr. Peterson. You're going to be the first.
I'm sorry. So this is interesting because you've got the capital fund balances, which you could basically say we're not going to start a project, we're going to slow a project down. You can move those funds around, and then you have the expense budget. Typically in the past, it's always this. I would call it maybe a gut checkpoint where you get to the end of the budget process. So what is the status right now of a shortage or a surplus? And I know you say you're going to go back and talk to the department heads, but how do we look right now on that end of it as far as the expense budget, short or long?
Well, if you look at the biggest operating fund is the current expense fund. And that's the first one here. And you can see we're anticipating ending 2020 at just over 2.1 million. Last year, we ended at about 1.9 million. So we're showing an increase of, a couple $100,000. Last year, we were in compliance with our covenants, our debt covenants on current expense. We're actually considerably above it. So you can see we're having a slight deficit this year. But still within our covenants. So in the review, we'll look at that and see if we can, not reduce it. And like all the funds, we'll go through and we'll fine tune, and we're definitely. This was an initial go, so we have a lot of work to do to fine tune it.
Sure. It's always that first pass though when things are okay that it can take a little bit of a. I get it.
And as I explained, there is some reasons for the drawdown in some of those funds that it was anticipated, and we were building reserves in those funds in order to pay for some of those capital projects. So it was definitely a known factor, and it just seems to be coming true for next year that we're going to use up some of that reserve balance.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
And I'll get into a lot more detail and I'm sure you're looking forward to in future.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go to Ms. Selby.
Well, I just have a comment that in the time that I've been on the council, it seems like we meaning you guys basically, have done a lot of work on making our budget more organized and understandable. And it seems to me that that's making it a whole lot easier for us to adopt the budget every year. And I hope that's working for the staff as well, that it's becoming easier for you guys.
Well, definitely the Questica has helped us out. We don't have to manage the spreadsheets. And once the number goes in, we work with that number. We don't have to update spreadsheets and then copy them or manually input them into BIAS. It's automatically in. So at the end of the process, we'll upload the finished budget into BIAS and we're good to go. But definitely Mike and I, we've worked hard at trying to simplify it, but yet still provide you with the information that we think's valuable to you to make a decision on the budget. But there is still a lot of work in the background.
Oh yeah.
I take my hands off to everybody that works in it, Desiree and Sean. And one thing nice also with payroll is there's a new module within payroll, in BIAS payroll, that allows us to do the budgeting within BIAS. So there was no extensive spreadsheets for the payroll. It's all done through BIAS, which Sean commented today that it really made her life a lot easier.
All right, Councilmember Sherman, any questions or comments?
Oh, I was just gonna say, Brian, after 1 year, I think this is pretty impressive. So thank you so much for all your work. And I was trying to think of a question for Desiree or Sean because we haven't heard from them yet, but I'm not coming up with anything. But everything looks awesome. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Trope.
It's going to take a while to digest this, but looking at hotel motel tax, I thought we reallocated the monies we didn't spend, so we were going to be closer to budget. So we reallocated those for December to for the light thing.
Yeah.
So you know, it's $6,000, not, you know, chump change in that, but just one that stood out to me. So worth some looking.
Yeah, I'll have a look.
A couple months ago. And then it looks like the wastewater fund grew by almost $500,000 and the capital reserve went down on wastewater. I'm wondering if those are related. That's just.
They could be, like I say, I have to look at the new detailed analysis on the interfund transfers.
Okay, just later date. I mean,
definitely.
I see big swings like that. I'm trying to correlate what's real and what's not. And that one seemed like they're offsetting. And I didn't know.
It's a risk at showing this detail at this point in the budget process, but I think it was important. And there's still a lot of work left to do.
Peace. I'm good.
Okay, I actually do have a question and a comment. So I know Mike is very conservative with our budget and tries to be very careful. However, I'm going to ask this question, Mike, and I know you and I have talked about it. As I was looking at the FTEs, and we've spoken in the past about some type of grant administrator or something to help monitor and keep track of all our grants. We get so many, and I'm not complaining, but it's, from what I understand, it's a huge, burden's not the right word, but it puts a big workload on a number of staff to have to try to manage these, not to mention you, okay? You're a given. So I'm just wondering if there's been any further thought, because I love that we get these grants and I want us to continue them. I just do not want to bury the staff because of it. So Desiree has a comment, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Yeah, I actually just did some research on a grant management software. There is one that's relatively cheap. It's less than $1,000 a year. And it seems like it'll do a lot of what we need it to do. I think that will help take the burden off of a lot of people, it'll open up the communication line. So everybody's looking in one slot. It looks like it will work really well. They have a free 14-day trial. I just haven't had 14 days to devote to looking into it more. But I really do appreciate your concern with there is a lot of work that go into grants. But I think that this software will be good for grants and for contracts as far as Lisa and Carolyn are concerned.
Oh, excellent then. That's a simple solution. Should it fill in the space? I just want to make sure that you all are monitoring your workload, Mike, and you do so much.
Well, another thing that I was planning on too, as far as the grant writing goes, is that's part of the reason why I wanted it, that I'm glad JUB is getting it, because City of Liberty Lake, they do a ton of standoff contracts with JUB where they actually write like the grants for them. So I see that as a similar opportunity when we get them under contract for an on-call engineer, where times where I'm buried, they could help out in that regard.
Okay, good. All right, well, let's give this software a chance, see where it goes. And if it doesn't do what the staff needs it to do, we can discuss it further at another time then. All right.
Just to let you know, Daysherry looked at a number of other different programs. Some didn't appear to work and some were kind of cost prohibitive. So she looked at a number of them, not just the one.
Good, good. Just want to make sure we keep an eye on that. It keeps the money coming in and keeps the staff healthy. Okay, so are there any other business for the good of the order?
I'll just say that the parade appears to be behind schedule, so we should all be able to go outside and see them.
Woohoo! Excellent. Any other? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. All right, we have a first and a second. Any other questions or comments? If there's no objections, the meeting is closed at 6:42 p.m.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
Yeah.